So we're getting closer and closer and closer to the new Football Manager 2022 game coming out. We're in September now, which means we're a month away from October, which is usually when the game comes out, apart from the odd time when it's come out in November. The point is though, we're getting closer to the release date, and whilst there's been no official news just yet, I think it's time to start speculating on what changes, additions and improvements can be made to the game coming up. To be fair, actually, we do already know that women's football is coming to the game, but probably not Football Manager 2022. I think it's still in early stages of development, so maybe FM22 is more realistic. The game have just announced a partnership with Everton Women, which is exciting, but I think this is still a bit of a long-term project for them, so don't expect women's football in FM22. Now, all the things that I'll be talking about in today's video are things that I want to see in the game. They won't necessarily be coming to the game, I have no idea if they are or not, but they're just changes, tweaks and additions that I would like to see in the new game. I also asked loads of you guys on Twitter and Discord to see what you guys wanted to see in the new games, and I'll put some of your best suggestions in today's video at the end of it. But I would also love to know what you guys, the people watching this video, want to see in the new game, so make sure you leave a comment down below telling me what you want to see in FM22, and whilst you're down there, make sure you do drop a like on the video for me and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here for plenty of FM22 content. So the first big change that I want to see is just simply continued improvement to the match engine, which sounds a little bit boring, but there are a few things that need to be changed massively. Now I say continued improvement because it does get better every single year. This year's been one of the most fluid match engines I think we've ever seen, which is really, really nice. There's just a few issues. The biggest one that really grinds my gears is when you've got a player running down towards the opposition penalty area, he runs straight through to the byline, and then rather than cross it, which is the sensible option, they shoot. Every single time. I get that sometimes players are going to be selfish, they're going to shoot, it happens all the time, but not to the frequency that it happens in Football Manager, particularly when 99% of the time there is such a better pass option available to you. And it doesn't seem to change if your player's got like 20 decision making, if they've got 20 passing, if they've got 1 shooting, it doesn't change. They always just love to go for the shot and it never works. And then when you're cross at that player, you might want to shout at them. But don't bother saying anything other than encourage or demands more, because the other ones just seem to do absolutely nothing. From my experience and what you guys have told me, it just doesn't seem to do anything. So I'd love to see the other shouts actually do something in the match engine now. I know I was talking about how fluid the match engine is and how much nicer it is to watch this year, but still, there are some issues, particularly when it comes to slide tackles just not looking particularly real, I would say, and then standing tackles, a lot of the time are just two players standing next to each other and then suddenly someone comes away with the ball. I'd like to see it a bit more fluid, better interaction between the character models, just so you feel a little bit more immersed. I'd like to see that improvement. Another addition to the match engine that I am absolutely praying for, and I think you guys are as well, is a skip VAR button. It takes so long to just sit there and watch the referee go all the way to his little TV box thing. He takes like 5-10 seconds to watch it, but we can't see what he's watching. If you had like a free camera, wow, this is quite good. I'm getting the idea from my head right now. If there was like, you could see what he's looking at in sort of a weird camera angle or something like that to see what he's seeing, that would be quite cool actually. Maybe the novelty wears off quite quickly, but the point is, it takes a long time. I have spent matches where I've spent more time watching the VAR animation sort of play out than I have actual highlights, and it's so frustrating. Just press skip, you know, I don't care about the referee moving around. The skip button would make it a lot better. And speaking of VAR, I would love just a little bit more variety in the decisions that it makes. When have you ever had a goal go to VAR and then it still stands afterwards? I can't think of a time where that's happened to me. Every single time the goal is disallowed. In real football, a lot of the time a goal goes to VAR, they check it over and the goal still stands. So I'd like to just see that happen at least once to be quite nice in a Football Manager save. And I kind of touched on it earlier as well, but obviously talking of camera angles, a free camera would be so good, particularly for content creators like me. Just have that free camera to just fly around and sort of see what's going on from different angles, particularly for tough offside decisions. You know, if you've got a tough goal line decision, put it on the line, see what happens, see if you can actually see the ball cross the line or not. There's so many cool options you can do with a free camera, and I'd love to see it added to the game. Oh, and finally, on the match engine, please, please, please fix the latest scores. So many times I'm looking through latest scores and I just want to see the results, but it never loads. And it's so frustrating because a lot of the time it's an intense situation. I need to know if another team is winning or losing, and then it just won't load and I can't see it. It gets to me, It's really frustrating. Please get that fixed. So although football scores don't always work for me in game, I know exactly where they work in real life, and that is of course the sponsor of today's video, the One Football app. The One Football app is the best football app out there to keep up to date with all of the latest footballing news, scores and updates from around the world. You can get push notifications sent straight through to your phone when anything ever happens in a game, in a match that you want to keep tabs on. It's also the quickest app I've ever used to get through scores and notifications. They are much quicker than any other app out there, which is great because I get to get that news before my friends do when I'm with them, so I feel like I'm a genius in front of them, which is quite nice. Anyway, you can download the app for absolutely free from the top line of the description. Doing so would really help me and the channel out, particularly because I am going part-time soon, as in like dropping hours at work to do this more full-time, part-time, so that would massively help. Thank you. Right, so the next sort of section I want to talk about is transfers, and I know transfers gets on everyone's wick in this game. When we make transfers, we want to buy players for as cheaply as possible and sell them for as much money as possible. It's basic economics, right? Obviously, the AI are going to want to do the exact same. It's how you make a balanced game, and I fully understand that. What I don't fully understand is when clubs want to bid for my striker, who is one of the best in the world. He's had Ballon d'Or nominations, and they want to pay less than market value for him, despite him being pretty much one of the best players in the world. I mean, look at him. He's absolutely insane, right? But if I go to Man City under 18s, if I sort it by value, just go for the most expensive kid here, right? Let transfer, make an offer, suggest terms, 71 million. I mean, what's that about? He's 17, valued at $500,000, has done nothing in his career so far, and you want 71 million for him. I mean, it gets to me. I understand that the reputation of the club and the league that they're playing in is going to dictate the value of that player. I can understand that. But to me, it feels like that is taking too much priority. There's not enough priority placed on the individual player itself. I mean, he has literally won 2 World Footballers of the Year awards, 2030, 2031. The Ballon d'Or, which is World Golden Ball, he's actually won 2 of those. I thought he was only nominated. He's won 2 of them. Like, he's insane. He is the best player in the world. I think those awards should have a much bigger impact on what he's valued at and what clubs bid for him than just my team's reputation. And by the way, my team is pretty decent. We're Aberdeen. We're in the 6th/5th best league in Europe, but we keep winning Champions Leagues. We keep getting to finals. We've got great reputation. It's just that, I don't know, club, we're just not liked. For whatever reason, no one wants to pay us any money for our players. And so when I'm getting made offers of less than market value for Jan Cavalcanti, it just grinds my gears. It grinds my gears. I'd like to see in the new game just a little bit more, I don't know, sense in the transfer market, and I'm sure that you guys will agree with me as well. I would also love to see a few more options when loaning players out as well. When I'm going through loan options for my players, I like to see all of the teams that are bidding for that player, and then I go through and look at what league they're in, because obviously you want them to play in the best league they can play in. You want them to play for a team that's always going to win, so you're going to check the season preview to check if that team is predicted to come top of the table, and if they're going to be a regular starter in that team, it means they'll play a lot and win a lot, which helps improve the player. I also go in to check the training facilities, because I'd rather have my player training at a good training facility rather than one that's rubbish, because again, it helps them develop a little bit better. And then if I'm being really picky, I also go in to have a look at the coaching staff as well, to make sure the coaching staff's personality is good to help develop my player, and also if their preferred positions and preferred formations match up to what my player should be doing in his role and stuff like that. So that is like a pretty long process if you've got 10 clubs bidding for one of your players, and it takes a lot of time to go through it all. But that's just a thing you can gauge. You also can't gauge how well that player is going to fit into the club, because you don't know the club's dynamic, you don't know the personalities of all the players, and if your player's personality is completely different to the other players, they're not going to learn from them. You also don't know how good your player is compared to everyone else in that team. If he's the best player there, he's not really going to improve because he is the best player there. You want them to be players who are older, who are better, to help tutor your player to become a better player. I've said player quite a few times in that sentence, but you get what I'm saying, right? So what I would absolutely adore in Football Manager is to have your loan manager come back with a full report telling you exactly what you're going to be getting at that club. How good are they? How good are their facilities? How good is the team? Will your player fit in? All that kind of stuff I've just spoken about, just in one nice, lovely, concise report for all the teams that are there. That would be brilliant. and that would make life so much easier, and I think it would really add to the game in a way that I think a lot of people just sort of dismiss loans and think if a loan big comes in, yeah, I'll accept that. If this was part of the game, I think it would really help people learn how to develop players better. Make that an option as part of the scouting budget so it's balanced out. If you've got a low budget, you're not going to get as good reports. If you've got a rubbish loan manager, you're not going to get as good reports. If you've got great budget and a great loan manager, of course your reports will be fantastic. I'm really convincing myself that this needs to be in the game. I feel pretty passionate about this. It's maybe not a big addition, but I would love to have this in the game. And of course, transfers cost a lot of money, all right? Transfers cost a lot of money, and that brings me on to my next point, which is money. In my Aberdeen save, I've been in 3 Champions League finals, and well, I've only won one of them, to be fair, but it's still a Champions League that we've won. The point is, we are a Champions League winning team. For the past 5 seasons in a row, we've been to at least the semi-finals of the Champions League. So you'd think we would be swimming, absolutely swimming in sponsorship money. How much do you think we make every year from sponsorship? If you guessed £4.1 million, you're spot on. 4.1 million, that's it. The biggest one we get is the stadium deal of 1.9 million per season for 15 years, and that's pretty small. I don't understand. We are literally at this stage one of the best teams in the world, and we can't get any sponsorship money. The worst bit about this is that is £10 million less than Celtic gets, and obviously in real life that would make a lot of sense. But in this version of the universe, where Celtic have only got to the first knockout round of the Champions League, we've literally been in the semi-final the past 5 seasons. In that time, 3 finals. We've won a Club World Championships. We have the best players in the world, and yet we get £10 million less per season than Celtic. Oh, it gets to me. The issue is the way that sponsorship money works, the way that reputation works, it's just not dynamic enough. It's just not dynamic enough. The whole system is so slow to react to what's going on, and I think it needs to massively change. To use a real life example, and I guess it's a bit of an extreme example, but I'm a Lincoln City fan in real life, and so I'm very familiar with Lincoln City's great FA Cup run a few years ago when we got to the quarterfinals. If you want to maybe compare it a little bit to Football Manager, right, the club's reputation increased massively because everyone saw us going through the FA Cup at the time as a non-league club. It was mental. Because the reputation increased so much in that time, we had companies doing one-off sponsorship deals for our FA Cup games. Go to the Arsenal game in the quarter-final, we were sponsored by Bannerama. They sponsored the actual league we were in, but they came to us and said, no, can we give you loads of money to get rid of your sponsor for this game and actually sponsor you for this FA Cup game? Like, that's how impressive and important it was, and that's how dynamic things are in real life. And as a result of that run, every year since, we keep getting bigger and bigger sponsorship deals because obviously we're doing well in real life. We've moved to League One now, which is fantastic. But off the back of the FA Cup run, we were able to charge a lot more money for sponsorship deals. So obviously, I'm not expecting one-off sponsorship deals in Football Manager. That maybe is a little bit too extreme. But the example rings true. It's just not dynamic enough in Football Manager. Reputation should really change. If you are a lower league club who gets a great cup run one season, you should expect a bigger sponsorship deal the next season, even if you don't get promoted, even if you have a poor league season, because you've had a good cup run or something like that. It matters massively, and I'd love to see that reflected in the game. Also, I am still very bitter that the sponsorship deals in my Aberdeen save are just absolutely atrocious. So for this next bit about money, I am about to go a little bit off topic, but it does all relate back to money, so just bear that in mind. Remember, in older Football Manager games, if you want an affiliate club, you ask the board and they say, well, do you want the affiliate club to send players out on loan to, or to send to get a work permit, or to create a commercial tie with a club in somewhere in Asia or America? Then, if you've been at the club long enough, they actually say to you, well, what club do you want us to try and go after? Rather than just giving you a list of like 3 really crap clubs to choose from like we do in this version of the game, if you were there long enough, you can have a say in the matter. So you can actually choose the specific club you want to link with, and more often than not, they'd make that link, which is fantastic. Please bring that back. I love it. I miss it. Please bring it back. I know it's not the most realistic thing. I guess in real life, a manager doesn't have much say over that sort of thing, but it was a lot of fun and I loved it. But the reason I talk about it is because you could make those commercial links to other clubs around the world. And I think Football Manager needs to do a much better job at the commercial aspect. Football's a global game now, and social media commercial ties play a big impact in that. As an example, when Ronaldo moved to Juventus, Juventus overnight saw an extra 1 million followers on their Instagram account, and their stock price rose 30%. Thank you very much for the stats on that one, Tifo Football. I would love to see a system in-game where you aren't necessarily given a number of followers, because maybe that's a little bit extreme in the whole situation, and it's obviously not meant to be a social media simulator. It's a spreadsheet simulator, not a social media one. But I'd like there to just be a bit more of the commercial summary and commercial side of things, right? Maybe you're deciding to sign 2 players. They're both of equal current ability, but one is £5 million more than the other player. So you look at their commercial summary, and the cheaper one has no commercial reach whatsoever, like no one really cares about him. The other player who's £5 million more, turns out he is an absolute saint. He's worshipped by fans across the world. You sign him and he will bring in tons of commercial revenue. The obvious real life example of this would be Son at Tottenham Hotspur, right? He is absolutely worshipped in South Korea. And if you watch the Tottenham Hotspur All or Nothing Amazon Prime documentary, you can see it there. Like, fans literally come from South Korea all the time to see Son. They wait outside the training grounds. They are obsessed with him. And obviously that brings a lot of money into Tottenham Hotspur. Now, in-game right now, there is a system where if you have got a player coming from abroad, sometimes it does say to you, yeah, if you sign this player, they'll make like £2 million in revenue, which is great. But I would love to see a proper commercial summary as like a separate page on every player profile. A lot of big players nowadays have entire, corporate sponsorship deals behind them. I want to see in Football Manager, if you sign a world-class player, for example, who's maybe backed by a big company, you get additional sponsorship money that next season because you've signed him, he's brought his sponsorships with him, and they now sponsor the club as well in some sort of way. It doesn't have to be like a multi-million pound deal, but just an extra bit of money coming in because you've signed that player. For me, having a whole commercial side of the game, it needs to be revamped, it needs to be improved, and I think this is one of the best ways to do it. I'd love to see it in the game. Now, the next big change I want to see in the game is some big tweaks to the user interface. For a spreadsheet simulator, the game is pretty nice looking, to be fair, and of course you can download skins to make it look even nicer. But of course, there are a few screens in the game which are, well, terrible. The big one for me is the sort of team meeting screens or the press conference screens. I do not understand why they're so bad. First things first, all the players are up here, which is okay, but when you're only talking to one player, for example, I've got the whole team here, so it kind of makes more sense that the whole team's up here. But when you're talking to just one player, you get a box this size just at the top of the screen. And then you have all of this empty space. Like, what is this space for? There is nothing there, and it just really infuriates me, particularly when you have such a small box down here for your responses. The text is tiny. It's actually quite hard to read, I think. And then if you have to scroll down. Why not just make this huge and just have a little bit at the top? Honestly, I think this screen is terrible. What is much better is the individual team meetings, like just this. It looks just a lot simpler, smaller. You can get all the information that you can see here, and you don't have to scroll down to see all the responses. It's much better, this screen. So there's a few screens like that. Obviously team meetings, press conferences. If a player comes to you with an issue and you talk to them, you get that screen as well. There's just so much empty space. It's just not very user-friendly, I don't think. And I'd love to see a few tweaks to that to make it just look a lot nicer and be a lot more user-friendly. Like, it puts me off talking to my team and players because I just don't like the screen. It really gets to me. Maybe I'm being a little bit pedantic on that one, but I'm sure a lot of you will agree with me, but it just is a bit of a weird broken screen. Now, when I was writing the script for this video, I realised there's an awful lot of things that I want to see added and changed and improved in the game. I mean, I've not even spoken about multiplayer in this video, because if I spoke about that, this video will be more than double in length. Multiplayer needs a big revamp. But also, of course, I asked you guys on Twitter and Discord to see what you guys want to see changed in the games, and a lot of you guys mentioned things that I would normally bring up, but you guys have brought it up, so I'm going to give you guys the credit for it. Of course, if you want to follow me on Twitter and join Discord, there are links down in the description below to get involved in those. A lot of you guys brought up set pieces, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. Jack, I'm with you on this one. The whole system is a little bit confusing and flawed, in my opinion. You set up a whole set piece tactic, but then when you change a couple players around and you change the kick taker, for example, take them off the pitch and put a replacement on, the entire system just seems to break and change to something you've not made. Now, this is because when you make the set piece, it's not putting the player in that position, it's putting the player's player in that position. So whoever's right centre-back is always going to be where that right centre-back position is on the corner tactic. It's even confusing to say out loud. It just doesn't make sense. For example, right, if you set up your corner tactic, you've got your 6'6" centre-back on the near post, but then he gets injured, you take him off for a replacement who's, I don't know, 5'3", for example. That 5'3" player is always going to be there, rather than your 6'6" guy you've just taken off. I think set pieces would be a lot better if you can make the formation and you say, whoever is the tallest player on the pitch with the best heading and best jumping reach, always be at the near post. Whoever it is, it doesn't matter who it is, just make sure it is the best person for those attributes is on that near post. I think that is a lot better of a system to make. But the whole thing is confusing, and I feel like I've even confused myself talking about it, so I tend to normally stay away from set pieces, but corner ones are quite good fun to do. If you've watched any of my videos or streams, you'll know that I'm not the most analytical Football Manager player out there. I don't normally dive into the analytics of games and stats all that much. It's useful sometimes, but I'm not the best at it. Clearly though, Adam on Twitter is. He loves the analytical data, but apparently it's got worse in recent years. I wouldn't know too much about that because I don't normally dive into it, but I am all for just having more analytical tools in the game to help you make decisions and go as in depth as you want. So I'm always going to be an advocate for adding more and more stuff to the game like that. Obviously, I am managing in Scotland right now on my YouTube save with Aberdeen. Aldo clearly is a big Scottish fan. He wants to see some more Scottish leagues in the game. And I'm with that, but I'm with that in general for just having more licensed leagues in the game. It's always good fun. Obviously, you can download leagues that people make on the Steam Workshop in the editor and things like that, which is great. I love that you can do that. It's such an open source game. It's great. But it would be a lot nicer just to have those leagues in the game from the off and they actually work. Now, licensing is obviously very expensive and they've got to weigh up the costs with how much people are actually going to play it. So I can understand why they don't routinely add in licensed leagues all the time. But just having more of them is good. I know a lot of people out there don't know how to download databases or even know you can even download databases, to be fair. I'm sure a lot of people don't know you can do that. So to just give people more options to play as more leagues and more teams in the game is great. Obviously, a bigger Scottish league would be great, but I'd love to see maybe like the USL in America. Obviously you've got the MLS, but the USL there is a much more simpler league to understand, and it's kind of like the second tier of American football. Of course, there's no promotion relegation to MLS, but the USL would be a good fun one to do. Maybe some of the leagues in Asia, which are getting bigger and bigger, they'd be quite good fun to do as well. So I'd like to just see more leagues in general. Africa, there's hardly any African leagues in the game. Get some more of those in there. I'd love to do a bit of an African journeyman save, to be fair. That would be quite good fun to try and win that, or do as part of a Pentagon challenge. Get some more African leagues in there. Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, they'd be pretty decent leagues to do. Keg has also come in with some great suggestions. A lot of them we've already spoken about actually in today's video. But I particularly like the bit about more youth intake features. I think that's a really cool idea. If you know that you've got a lack in wingers, you can ask your head of youth development to try and bring through a few more wingers. And I guess it's not that realistic, right? Because in real life, a manager might be at a club for 3 or 4 years. He's not going to be there normally for 10 years plus to see that development of players come through all the way through. So I can see why it's not in the game, but for a lot of us, we like to do the one club saves, right? That would be quite cool to have in there. If you know you're weak in a certain position, get some youngsters through who might fill that. Balance it out, so if you ask for loads of wingers, you might miss out on a 5-star centre-back, for example, but, you know, that's your fault. And finally, I think this one is one of my favourite suggestions, and I'd love to see this added into the game. I think it's really important to get it added into the game. So, Jamie, cracking idea, this one. Now, he's talking about basically having dynamic youth importance in the game. If you don't know, Football Manager has a youth rating system for every single nation out there. So every nation is given a number between 1 and 200, and the higher the number, the better quality youth players are going to come through from that country. If a nation has a low number, such as like an Andorra, they'll be right down near the bottom. It doesn't mean they can't produce the next Messi. It just means they're very, very unlikely to produce the next Messi. Whereas a nation with a high youth rating, like Argentina, is a lot more likely to. The issue with this system is that it's not dynamic. It is set in stone from the off, so it doesn't change. Like Jamie says, if a small nation suddenly gets really good or gets lucky and does really well in an international tournament, that should reflect in the youth rating. That should create a buzz in that country where they decide, right, we're quite good at football, let's put some more money into the infrastructure, let's try and create some better players, and as a result, that youth rating will improve and maybe better players will start to come through, or a better chance of better players coming through. If that youth system rating was dynamic, imagine how interesting that would make some of your saves, particularly if you're doing a Building a Nation save in Vanuatu, for example. It just makes it a little bit more realistic, and I love the idea, and I think that needs to be added into the game ASAP. So that is it. That's my FM22 wish list, all the things that I want to see added, improved and changed into the new game. And again, probably most of these things won't happen, but I've got it out there. I've got my thoughts out, documented for you lot to see, and I'd love to know what you guys think, and if you guys agree with me, if you disagree with me, and what you guys want to see. What have I not mentioned in this video that you think needs to be in the new game? So thank you ever so much for watching today's video. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Of course, make sure you do drop a like on the video for me. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Plenty of FM22 content coming out when the game comes out. Obviously, we'll do a few more news bits as well, as and when we get news for Football Manager. So if you want to be up to date with all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. And until next time, have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.